So hi everyone, let's start. So we are now going to have the Indian economy some contemporary perspective. So now we are into lecture 2, and this is in continuation with the lecture that we just finished, lecture 21, and this is going to be the fourth lecture on the financial sector. So now I have put 4. So now we have first we discuss about the banking sector, then further the banking sector developments, then we discuss the NBFCs and some committees reports, and now we are into the financial sector 4, lecture 4, and this is also talking about certain committees, recommendations and other things. So the readings remain same like previous lecture. So if you want, you can refer the previous sector lecture reading, and then you can just this particular lecture, and then we can go ahead. So here we were discussing about the Raghuram Rajan committee, and this committee had recommended the wide range of the addressal of issues in India's financial sector, and it has touched almost all the topics. So that's why this committee is also called as Gen Next Committee Reform. You will find writings on this on the Niti Aayog website. You can also go to EPW, and you can also read 1 or 2 papers appearing on this Raghuram Rajan committee reports. But this committee report was widely popular at that time when it was just submitted. Keeping in mind that we had to undergo structural changes, and then when we had opened our economy for the foreign investors, and then in foreign investors we had foreign portfolio investors, then we had the direct route of investment, and then keeping in mind certain geopolitical dynamics, we had to put a check on the foreign investors, and we had to put some norms so that we can easily identify which all investors are genuinely involved in productive activities, and it should not be used for any other purpose. So since the economy is now expanding, so we are now in the post 2000 period where we had almost gone through the liberalization phases, and we were seeing the changes happening in different segments of the economy. So investment, foreign investment became one of the hotly debated topics, because after 1997 East Asian crisis, for the first time the world had realized that this foreign portfolio investment may be sensitive to certain geopolitical development, geopolitical shocks, and that may have adverse impact on the economy. So Committee on Investor Awareness and Protection by Dhirendra Swarup 2010, it was set up, and this committee had given recommendation. So this committee had recommended that there should be a Financial Well-being Board of India, and this Financial Well-being Board of India will have two legs. One will be self-regulatory organizations, SRO, and one will be the financial literacy cell, and this financial literacy cell will have a lot of role in terms of facilitating the investor awareness and thinking about how this investor awareness can be taken up to different level in terms of providing knowledge and awareness about certain products, certain developments, certain regulations. And self-regulatory organizations were made aware of to identify certain regulatory norms and to implement those norms on the investment in the country, not only inflow but outflow of investment also, so both inflow and outflow. And it was also recommended that this FinWeb, which was created, Financial Well-being Board of India, it will have the representations from ministries, then regulators, SEBI, and maybe some other regulators may also be part of, and it will also have members from industry association. So this particular committee report is having importance in the sense that from the perspective of whether the investment coming from the foreign country. So it was found that in some cases the money had come from China and some other countries where it is not expected, and our economy is quite sensitive about the investment coming from these channels, but they route it from different geographical location and comes to India. So for the first time this committee had recommended that like banks which have a know your customer kind of norms to fill it before they invest or before you do banking transactions. In the same way, the foreign investors will also have to go through those norms, and based on the OECD framework, they will be complying with those norms, and then only they will be allowed to access the capital market or investment market in the country. So, for the first time, this committee had gone for such an elaborate discussion or recommendations on the investment or sensitive investment in Indian activities. So, this was as I mentioned that this was about the capital inflows management and rationalizing the legal process. It was also suggested that there will be a financial sector appellate tribunal, that if there is any dispute happening, then there will be this financial sector appellate tribunal to look after those kind of capital flow management regulations, and if there are violations, then this particular appellate tribunal will look into those issues. A single window registration and administration of portfolio investment regulators, and it is normally called as qualified foreign investor. So, for the first time, this committee had recommended that there should be some kind of regulatory norms to identify the qualified foreign investors, and they will be allowed to invest. The investment to listed or unlisted securities at a level below 10% of shares would be considered portfolio investment. So, it means that if the investment is below 10%, then this will automatically be qualified as the foreign portfolio investment, so FPI, and if it is above 10%, then this will be considered FDI and would require the compliance with the existing FDI rules. So, as such, just to make sure that we are opening the economy and we wanted some regulatory framework to put in place. So, this particular recommendation was really useful. So, here it is also considered as one of the most important I would say recommendations. So, this particular committee became popular in the sphere of foreign investment, and it was unlike the Dhirendra Swarup, which talked about the identifying or going for investor awareness and protection, that if the investor has been given some kind of or has purchased some financial instrument, then how they can go for safeguard if there are any disputes. And since in India we were having a financial diversification happening, not in terms of the services, but also in terms of products. So, at that time it was widely required that this particular committee should be there to take care, and some regulatory framework must be given, so that the stakeholders should not feel exploited or feel cheated, because in the financial market, in the conventional setup, it appears that it is quite risky business. So, if you have awareness, then people would like to participate. In 2010, the foreign investment working group was set up, and it was under the chairmanship of UK Sinha, and this committee focused on the capital flows management regulation, and this committee had recommended in terms of going for the OECD norms, and it was also suggested that this particular committee had recommended in terms of inflow and outflow of the investment. So, this committee had gone for devising certain know your customer norms, so that it will be easier to identify the qualified investors, foreign investors, and if it is less than the investment exposure is less than 10%, then this will be considered as FPI, and foreign portfolio investment, and it is above 10%, then this particular investment has to go through certain regulatory processes of either direct route, or if there are some regulatory caps, then this particular institution will be identified. So, this one is one major recommendation. UK Sinha committee had also recommended that since under liberalized remittance scheme are allowed to remit up to 200,000 annually abroad, and it was also found that some private or some financial services companies, they were luring these investors to invest in certain activities, and it was also recommended, it was also found that there were violations of certain investment norms. So, this committee had recommended that until and unless this whatever services are being offered to the Indians, then these particular activities should be regulated, and until unless it comes under the regulatory framework of SEBI, then only it should be allowed, otherwise it should not be promoted. The committee had also a specific recommendation with regard to tax, derivatives, then they had also gone for debt, that up to what extent a particular firm can borrow from abroad, and how to what extent the foreign investors can participate in India. So those are the major recommendations of the foreign investment, and foreign investment recommendation became one of the hotly debated topics, because for the first time we were going to and streamlining the investment norm in the activities that we are doing. And since we were also looking for expansion and allowing foreign direct investment in certain activities, so this committee was widely needed. Then we had in March 2011 a committee was set up, which was under Justice B. N. Sri Krishna, and it was Financial Sector Legislative Reforms Commission. This is also called FSLRC, and this committee had gone for, it has submitted report in 2013, and this committee became one of the widely debated topics at that point of time, because for the first time this committee had gone for rationalizing gone for having something called Indian Financial Code, which means that this particular committee, for the first time, like Raghuram Rajan committee, Gen Next reform, this committee had gone for gigantic recommendations on each and every segment, each and every sector. So you can say that this particular committee had merged all the recommendations that we have discussed so far, and it had gone for a complete giving an architecture to the Indian financial system. So that's why it is called Financial Sector Legislative Reforms Commission, and FSLRC. And since it was headed by Justice B. N. Sri Krishna, so it also became popularly, it is called Sri Krishna Committee Report on the Financial Reforms. So this committee had a lot to recommend in terms of not just thinking about giving a specific recommendation to a particular sector, but this had covered a lot. So we will be discussing each component in detail. So Indian Financial Code, for the first time, this is the Commission's product, and this was recommended. So code deals with the establishment of financial agencies, establishment and structure of tribunals, allocation and regulation of financial services. It is a single internally consistent laws of 450 sections that were expected to replace bulk of the existing Indian financial law. So for the first time, a particular committee, this particular committee, FSLRC, had recommended that even you are living in a remote location or semi-urban areas, so there must be some kind of redressal committee or redressal some kind of regulations meant for those first generation or second generation, or the first timer or first generation investors to be protected. Because so far in India, what has happened, and even after 2007 8 crisis, it was found that most of the companies or investment companies, they were selling their product without informing or giving proper information to the investor, and during normal period everything goes well, but whenever there is a dispute, then it becomes really difficult for the investor to approach some authority or to have information that where this particular issue will be resolved. So it was widely needed, because after 2010 government had given some kind of mandatory norms, or after 2005 itself it started, and it was given some kind of mandatory norms for the bank to open branches in rural areas, and these bank branches were having all sort of services. So the people living in different district, different small town cities, they had no idea that to what extent some regulations are covered to their worries, and it was also badly needed, because the financial sector was expanding, and this particular expansion, especially in terms of insurance, in case of credit card, especially in case of loaning a small amount or a big amount for shorter maturity or longer maturities, even the selling of houses for the longer duration, collateralized, non-collateralized loans. So in case of collateralized loan, if there is some dispute, where to approach if it is not resolved by the financial institution. So such worries were there, and this committee, Indian Financial Code, incorporates all those worries, and it was quite a gigantic work, and that's why it has 450 sections, and it merged a lot of existing Indian laws and gave a contemporary or some improvised recommendations on those existing laws. So, as I mentioned, the first deals with the consumer protection, second is the macroprudential regulation. So, there is as I mentioned in the previous lecture about the Patnaik and Shah. So, this particular section I am discussing, it is from there, and this particular section highlights a lot. So, maybe if you are not aware of, you can just search on the net about the FSLRC report. You will find a lot of newspaper coverage, plus you will also find editorials appearing in leading dailies, plus also you will find certain websites where you have some viewpoint share. So, this particular committee recommendation became one of the important areas. So, unlike macroprudential, under macroprudential we look for managing the whole the shock system in the economy at the economy level, where we talk about how central banks should take measures, how government should try to minimize the shock, how the embarrassment, how the gigantic financial stability regulatory body should take care the risk management system within the country. But for the first time, this committee had gone for microprudential. So, microprudential in the sense that at very small or regional level, what should be the regulatory process. If I am holding a card, credit card or debit card, if there is some kind of transaction mismatch happening, if I am reporting to the bank and bank is not able to solve my issue, then where I should approach if I am living in some remote location or remotely located district in some states. So, I should not be traveling only to the metros or the capital city in a state to solve this issue. So, for the first time, the financial regulatory body has reached to that extent. So, that is why it is called microprudential regulation. Then there was a resolution framework, that in case of dispute how it will be resolved. Then the systemic risk regulation at the country level, what should be the systemic risk regulation, where we should be participating. Then capital controls, which means that inflow and outflow of capital, how it should be managed, where it should go and how it has to be examined. Then it was also about the monetary policy, that what should be the framework of monetary policy, whether as per the recommendations of the Raghuram Rajan committee, which mentioned about the single indicator approach, which means that inflation will be the sole indicator, and then the central bank has to target that with either in the medium term with certain range, or try to be the lowest target, whichever is better. But for the first time, this committee had taken into account those aspects, and it had recommended, and it had also gone for some kind of setting of a new member committee, where in which it will not be just RBI, but some government nominated members also. So, for the first time it was there. Then the public debt management, what will be the government norms for maintaining the debt, what should be the ratio of debt to GDP and how it can be minimized and monitored. Then development and redistribution, which means that how we can go for whatever the benefit that we have, we can redistribute among the masses. Then the contracts trading, which means that at the very micro level, if the investors are investing money in the stock market or any activity, then how they should be protected, what should be the role of those, how new contracts can be devised, and what should be the in case of any kind of dispute, what should be the modus operandi for tackling those issues. Market abuse, that how if a particular company is being traded, or if a particular stakeholder is having exposure to a particular entity, and if that entity is not given due importance or some kind of due diligence before going for any takeover and all, then how that has to be addressed. So for the first time, it had 9 components, and these 9 components are worth revisiting. So maybe I may not be able to finish all the sections today. Maybe I will continue in the next session, but it is really important, and the document is available on the Carnegie Mellon website, and there you can access this document and read about. So this Financial Sector Legislative Reforms Commission, many times as an economics student, we are not aware of, but this is for the general audience also, those who are going to prepare for civil services or even for the banking services examinations. So in the sub component of the consumer protection, it was also found that there should be some kind of regulatory norms for some schemes, for example Ponzi schemes, and there is also some kind of mismanagement happening from the side of financial firm just to have a, or there are some targets attached to the salesmen of these Ponzi schemes. For example, if a salesman is working in a bank, and if and the bank gives a target to the salesman that you have to sell 10 credit cards in a day or 5 credit cards in a day. You might be experiencing it when you go and or travel to or just go for shopping in a shopping mall. Then you experience that you have some people who are offering you lucrative options on credit card, debit card, financial products. So because of that, in some cases it happens that they end up having the unfair advantage, which means that whatever is being promised by the firm, that they will be having only this card will have only this debit card or credit card will have only this advantage. Just to meet the target, they offer more than that, and if the consumer is going to purchase that service, then of course he or she will expect that whatever it has been said by him or her, and if it is not going to materialize, then this leads to dispute. So in that context, the committee had gone for consumer protection. It has devised that a set of rights must be there, protection for consumers, so that in case such type of things are happening, then this particular consumer must be protected. A set of power through the financial agencies will uphold these rights and protections. So there will be rules and regulations framed, and some agencies will be empowered to implement these set of rights and protections, and principles that guide which power should be used and under which circumstances, which means that there will be some kind of regulatory body to take care these services. So this becomes really important. The rights and protection that the IFC would guarantee: consumers are protected against the contract terms, against the misleading and deceptive conduct, which means that you are utilizing the services, but suddenly you realize that the bank is not responding, or it may happen that institution from where you purchased those financial products, they disappeared. So in those situations, where to approach? So this in Indian Financial Code gives some kind of protection. The draft legislation also outlines the right to receive reasonable quality of service and data privacy and security, which means that if you are going to share your information with the bank or any entity from which you are going to avail some services, then whatever information that you have shared, there must be some kind of privacy. So third party selling should not be allowed. And Indian Financial Code Shri Krishna Committee report had for the first time incorporated this kind of rules and regulations under the consumer protections. Regulators are empowered under the IFC to impose a range of requirements upon financial services providers, which means that if you are going to have so once size fits all, it should not be the same. It should be that if a particular firm or particular bank is going to provide a financial service, then they should specifically mention that what should be the criteria of that, what is the minimum requirement, and then only that financial service will be available. Otherwise, it should not be sold to anyone whatever amount, and in case of and there should not be any kind of incentives, wrong incentives given. It should have the proper incentive structure. So it was all about designing the financial product in a such manner that there should be a less dispute and there should be a less confusion to the consumer, and consumers are equally protected. The legislation also embeds fairly instructive powers for regulators, such as recommending modifications in the design of service and product. Such type of contemporary recommendations were never there in India, and unfortunately in some cases partially it has been implemented, but it is not taken in the true spirit. So the committee had recommended that the empowered body must have the right to instruct certain changes if they find any flaw with regard to the buy and sell of the product. So, that becomes really important to note here, that how the consumer protection requirements were deeply discussed and devised, and in a very detailed manner it was incorporated in the FSLRC report. Would guarantee consumers are protected against unfair contract terms, against misleading. So, this one was always there. So, these points we have already covered. And then there was also a recommendation to have a unified financial redress agency, and this was for the first time this committee had recommended that the agency would have a presence in every district in India, and would be a place where consumers of all financial could submit complaints. So, which means that for the first time the regulatory bodies, for example, most of the regulatory bodies are located in Mumbai, whether it is SEBI or whether it is the RBI or whether it is the SBI. So, for the first time the regulatory bodies were completely decentralized, and they were sent at the district level, so that if the financial services are going to be expanded with more financial inclusion, then those issues must be addressed there itself. Consumers would only have to deal with one agency in this area rather than multiple agencies, which means that this particular agency will have a whole lot of powers to deliberate on the complaint received from different product. For example, if I am having issue with my saving account dispute, and then I also have credit card, and then I also have the insurance, then all these three must be addressed by one regulatory body, and it should have the unification. The local operations would be connected to a centralized and streamlined process, and a well structured workflow would support the speedy and fair handling of the cases, which means that in a timely manner these cases will be addressed, and then the whatever the settlement or any kind of or compensations will be processed in a time bound manner. The analysis of patterns in the complaints of consumer at the financial redress agency, which means that would be feedback into improved reverse, which means that some experiences, whatever has been done, if there is a scope of automation, that this particular service, this particular complaint that we have received, and there is a process that if we can do this part, then this particular problem will be solved automatically. So, which means that a less amount of time will be spent on those activities. So this particular recommendation, unified financial redress agency, was recommended by this committee, and for the first time we had the regulatory body set up at every district level, unified structure, some incentive in a time bound manner, and also there was a whole lot of analysis of certain activities and certain complaints addressing in a time bound manner. So far I am stopping here. So far what we have discussed is about the FSLRC commission report, and then we also discussed some committees on the investor awareness for an investment. So given this, now we are into the contemporary framework. So I hope these new changes that we are going to discuss, it will add value to your knowledge, and then we will continue this in the next session. Thank you so much.